All right, guys, we're going to get started here in a second. What's up, Canes? What's up, man? Just looking at the midweek matchups we got coming up. Clemson Coastal will be a good matchup. Florida State, Florida rematch of the midweek last week. North Carolina, South Carolina. What's up, Buck? Troy Wofford will be a good game. Canes, high school question. Did your high school get invited to the USA tournament? I saw a Wesleyan high school that was in the invite-only tournament in April. I don't believe so. I don't think we do. I don't think we did. My high school plays Corona High School in the first round of that tournament, and we are going to win. Good luck. They're pretty stacked. Auburn, South Alabama, Dallas Baptist, Abilene, LSU, Louisiana, Lafayette, Irvine, USC, Oregon State, Washington. It's going to be interesting to see how Oregon State is affected by not being in a conference this year. Like, it's really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to me that, I want to pull up. Let me just pull up Oregon State's full schedule. Because I feel, and I'm going to look at the schedule and just see kind of what it looks like, but I feel like they should be held to a much higher standard, generally speaking, if they're not playing in a conference. And okay, so they play Nebraska, UC Irvine, who's probably the best mid-major on the West Coast right now after sweeping Santa Barbara, Fullerton, CSUN, Gonzaga, Oregon, okay, Hawaii, Iowa, Long Beach. To me, it's a very, very cushy schedule. So again, for me, like Oregon State to be a host has got to like really dominate, because they're just not playing much competition, And again, that'll probably be taken into account, but it's probably the Wesleyan High School out of North Carolina. They're right near me and are very popular nationally. They have the right-handed pitcher Kozart, who's throwing like 97 or something. South Carolina versus North Carolina prediction. Let me see. It's all right. So it's at a neutral ground, even though it is in Charlotte, at Truist, the White Sox AAA stadium. At least it used to be the White Sox. I don't know if they've switched, but I think North Carolina wins. Just to be honest, I don't think anything crazy happens. But who knows? Who knows? All right, so I did find out yesterday, actually this morning, that tweet talking about Rob Vaughn getting suspended and fined $25,000. I think it could have been fake. I saw someone say, "Hey, like this account tweets a lot of like not true stuff." Be interesting to see if the Gators rebound tonight. Yeah. I mean, they beat Florida State, right, in the previous midweek game matchup, but this midweek doesn't do anything for their season. Like you got to do well in conference, or at least in the SEC. You got to get to 13 wins to make it, like they did last year. And I wanted to be Kyle School so he can tell us who is impressing him. Yeah. Kyle is fake news. I know, man. I know. If we fell for it, I mean, it could be true, but I think like that would be getting more widespread coverage if he was actually suspended for 4 games and fined 25,000 and had to write an apology letter to the umpire and Tony Vitello, which I did say like this is weird. Why does he have to write an apology letter to Tony Vitello? I know, fake news. I know. Hey, we're all we're all susceptible to it. Thank God it's fake though. We would have went soft as a society if that was true. Yeah. Well, again, I was like 4 games. I've never heard of that. $25,000 fine. I've never heard something that large of a fine in college baseball. So I mean, it should have just screamed fake, but it looked like it was official. You know. What's up, my brothers in Christ? What's up, Dust? What's up? So right now, to me, I'll just pull it up for the what looks like to be the best matchups today. Um, like West Georgia, how about West Georgia? The start they've had to their experience in Division One, they're 4-2 in the Atlantic Sun. They're 13-9. They've actually played a lot of really good competition. Right? They played Georgia Tech. They've played some other Power Four schools. They're playing Georgia today. Um, should be a really interesting one. Ready to start getting some bracketology from D1 baseball. Kennesaw State's playing well. Again, they got really good young pitching. I know their overall record like doesn't look great, but they usually do a lot of the. I don't know when the strategy changed. Um, a lot of the Georgia mid majors now are just like they're just running the gauntlet early in the year, and I feel like they just feel like that sets their team up to play really well in conference. Brad Stromdahl at Georgia State's done that for the last 2 or 3 years. This year, not as bad, but I mean, there was a few years where they had the toughest schedule in college baseball because they were just playing Power Fours every weekend before conference play. Kennesaw State always plays well. Yeah, they're always good. They're always good. Um, and so that'll be like a good matchup. It changed when Ryan Coe became the coach. Yeah, he's a great coach. I mean, he scouted me. And Brad Tyler, who was with the Indians, is his one of his assistants. And so overall, I mean, they just have a really good pro staff, right? They got a couple like longtime pro scouts who've been around the game a long time, know what they're looking at, know what they're doing. Um, and they've just played really well so far since they've taken over. Yeah, his name is Ryan Coe. Yeah, the head coach. That's the head coach of Kennesaw State. He was a longtime scout and cross checker for the not the Cleveland Indians, for the Texas Rangers. He was scouting when I was playing, so I have a good relationship with him. Brad Tyler, same thing, um, and so they just have a good bedrock of like baseball knowledge there. Uh, and again, you're recruiting in the Georgia hub. And Kennesaw State, from what I've heard, Georgia State's new facility plans they're actually breaking ground on them. So Georgia State's going to get a whole lot better real quick with that new facility. Um, Kennesaw State is supposed to be getting updates or a newer facility at some point here really soon. So both of those schools, like if Kennesaw and Georgia State is going to, um, they get facilities very similar to Georgia Southern. Like the state of Georgia already is very strong in their mid-major competition, but it's going to get even better once this new facility for Georgia State gets built and a new facility for Kennesaw State. Um, whether it's a new facility or just big upgrades, right, for their current facilities. Coastal and Clemson will be really good, right? I feel like Coastal's got knocked out of the top 25, but they're still 4-2 in the Sun Belt. They're 17-7 overall, like doing really well. Tennessee should have no issue with Queens. Florida State and Florida, yeah, this will be interesting, right? Just because Florida, you feel like you got to get back in the win column, even though it's going to be tough against Florida State. And ultimately for Florida, what's most important now is just starting to play better in conference, because when you start out 0-6, like we've talked about, just to get to 13 wins, you got to go 13-11 the remaining part of the conference play, right? So when you get swept twice out the gate, it just, even to get to 13 wins, you got to play above 500 ball the rest of the way. And to get into hosting contention, let's say in the SEC, like 16 wins is enough to host. I think that may be a stretch, but like certainly at 16-14 in the SEC, you're probably getting hosting considerations, especially if you've played well down the stretch, right? If you an emphasis on like what you've done lately. So for Florida to do that, there's 24 games left in conference. They got to go 16-8. So they literally have to win all of their remaining series to get to 16 wins. Florida also hasn't lost a midweek game yet. So they've taken care of business in their midweeks, but just had a rough start to SEC play, and obviously have some injuries and everything like that as well. Louisville at Cincinnati, that could be a solid game. Oregon, Kent State, like don't sleep on Kent State, playing really well in the MAC right now. North Carolina, South Carolina will be a premier matchup. Wofford and Troy will be another really good matchup. Wofford at 17-8. Haven't played any games in the SoCon yet, but Troy obviously top 25, doing really well in the Sun Belt, 18-6. Auburn, South Alabama, that'll be a good game, even though South Alabama started out pretty tough in the Sun Belt at 1-5. Lafayette, LSU, that'll be a good matchup. So there's a lot of good midweek matchups. Oregon State and Washington. Washington overall record not great, 11-14, but they're 4-2 in the Big Ten, so they're taking care of business so far in the Big Ten in the two series they've played. Obviously, Irvine right now is just playing out of their mind. They're 8-1 to start out in the Big West. That's huge. So a lot of good matchups. Well, let me look at the slate. So, obviously the first game for any of the top 25 teams is Georgia, West Georgia. So I'll probably be watching that. I'll be flipping through. I think really at 6:00, I'll be flipping through Georgia Tech, Kennesaw, obviously Coastal and Clemson, and Florida State. to me, I think those are going to be and there's a lot of good matchups in that time frame. And then at 7, you got North Carolina, South Carolina. I'll be right back. 1 second. All right, I'm back. But let's pull up. Let's see here. Let's end the sharing here. Let's go to Warren Nolan. I might go to the Georgia Tech Kennesaw State. They play at Marietta currently. So you're going to go to the game, Dust? I'm looking through some of the conferences right now. Dust, 1 second. So let's look at the College Baseball Central top 25 that they released this week. So very similar to D1 baseball. Again, I think Oregon State, to me, they've played really well, but I feel like they haven't really played anybody. And all their losses are to top 25-ish type teams. And they're independent, so they're not playing like a really tough conference schedule or anything like that. So I think they're a little bit heavily, not overrated, but just kind of the ranking. They got to dominate to maintain this ranking going forward. They have Georgia Tech all the way at 13. I think that may be a little high, but certainly they deserve to be in the top 25 right now. Everything else seems pretty straightforward. Florida's still at 19, even though they're 0-6 in the SEC. I mean, obviously the most surprising starts to the year in the major conferences, if you have to look at it, I mean, if you look in the ACC right now, it's got to be, UNC, how they've started, Virginia, how they've started. Those are the two biggest surprises and how just tough a start they've gotten off to. I think obviously both teams still have plenty of time to kind of right the ship, but it's like got to happen now. Kyle, how do you get better when you feel like you're not getting better? You just got to keep working, man. Right? That's pretty typical of anytime you're trying to get better at something. You're not going to see results right away, and a lot of times you won't see results for months. But if you keep working, eventually the results come. Florida is 0-6 in conference. Yes, they are 0-6 in the SEC. White House, what's up, man? They got swept by Georgia this past weekend, and they got swept by Tennessee the weekend before that. Yeah, I mean it's hard to but again, it just goes to show how difficult the SEC schedule is. There's really no one has an easy-ish schedule in the SEC. In the ACC, like we've talked about Georgia Tech, like they have a pretty favorable schedule because they miss UNC, Florida State, and Wake Forest. So, I mean, they're missing three of the top teams as according to rankings right now in conference. LSU sweeping Mississippi State next weekend. I don't know. Is it at home, White House? We'll do that right now. We'll look at the upcoming weekend matchups now, and just see which ones are going to be vitally important for some of these teams. Tennessee, South Carolina. Again, South Carolina 1-5 to start in the SEC. So this is a really important matchup for South Carolina. Can they win a series? Can they be the first team to beat Tennessee on the weekend? Florida, Ole Miss. Ole Miss has started out really good in SEC 4-2. Florida needs to get in the win column this weekend, right? And probably, again, this is probably a series you got to win if you're Florida. If you have any chance of getting back into hosting contention, you got to win this series. Florida State, Notre Dame. From what I saw this past weekend, I think Florida State probably sweeps this. It's in South Bend, though, so maybe the cold weather will affect the boys from Tallahassee. Good news is a lot of the Saturday games are getting later into the evening and night, easier to get to watch. Yeah, for sure. I got to hold Dusty and Kyle accountable. Okay. Let's hear it. Virginia Tech, Wake. This is a series again. Virginia Tech, don't sleep on them. They're a good team, even though they're 4-5 in ACC play right now. Y'all said in a space that Florida was a top SEC team and going to Omaha. Well, the season's not over yet, Zach. Like we said, the season's not over yet. They certainly have not played. And again, they, this past weekend, they're missing their Friday starter. And yeah, that was based off of how they were playing at the time. Like Dusty said. And we saw it last year, right, Zach? They went 13-17 in conference and made it. So, the SEC is maybe the one conference where a team that's 13-17 still has a really good shot. Because you have to remember, they're probably going to get matched up, no matter who they're matched up against in a regional. They're still almost favored, even as a 2 seed in a regional, because of the depth of their team. So, yeah, Florida has not played well, but still, do they have do they have the caliber of team to play in Omaha? 100%, 100% still. And like I said, like in the SEC, you get to 13 and 17, you got still got a chance to be in the tournament. They don't have Cags, Wyatt Langford, or Brady Singer walking through the door. Yeah, but they have guys on that team right now that will be really good. Maybe not drafted as high this year, but they still have guys that are really good. They just don't look like years past teams for Florida. Yeah, and again, I mean, I don't think anyone expected them to go 0-6 to start out SEC play, but they still have a type of team that can do something. Here's the really important series for our guys and the Miami guys in the chat. I mean, Miami in Chapel Hill, can they win this series? Can they get to 3-6 in ACC play? North Carolina has not played well so far in ACC play, so again, I mean, this is a series for Miami. If they just get one win and they're 2-7, things become really difficult. But if they can win this series, they have a pretty favorable remaining part of the schedule. Well, at the time, Zach, I thought Miami was good, and because Florida beat the brakes off them, I did the A is greater than B, greater than C math. How hard is it to get better year to year in the minor league system? Seems like a meat grinder. It's all about experience, Cap. Like, you have to be able to take the things that happen to you in, your first season in pro ball and apply fixes to your second year in pro ball. A lot of that work's done in the off season. So how much are you really dialing it in the off season, getting better hitting wise or pitching wise, but also stronger, knowing parts of your body that were, causing nagging injuries for you, trying to improve that. So it's not that hard. The hard part is the performing in the minor leagues, right? Because it is a grind. But to get better, it should be pretty straightforward on what you have to do to get better, if that makes sense. Don't defend Florida now. No one's defending Florida. We're just saying they're still, they have the team talent to make it still. And again, against Georgia, they don't have their Friday starter. Like, that's a massive loss. We said they were pretenders. Well, we'll find out, Canes, at the end of the season. But we don't make decisions two series into SEC play, even if they are 0-6. Cal, Louisville. Cal's playing really well. This is a really good matchup. Cal and Louisville, two teams that have really performed well so far in ACC play. The thing that most people don't understand is that you have a chance to really improve in season in pro ball. Practice and play every day for 28 of 30 days a month. Practice before every game. Yeah, like I think if you've never played pro ball and you don't know how it works, like your game's at 7, but you're getting to the field at, like, most guys show up around 1, and you're getting early work in. You're getting a light lift in, and then you're doing, again, you have a full hour and a half basically of BP, where you're working on stuff with your swing, you're taking fly balls off the bat, you're taking ground balls as an infielder. So you have a lot of time every day to work on things you need to improve. It's not just like you show up at 6 o'clock for a game and you hit in the cage real quick and then you play. I mean, it's like Dusty said, it really is like you have a practice and then a game every single day. Wake is also overrated. Miami's a better team than both teams, and coaching is the difference. Okay. Oklahoma versus Alabama will be interesting. Yeah, that'll be a really good. I mean, all the SEC series are going to be really good. I mean, the ACC matchup of the week really is Georgia Tech Clemson in Atlanta, but Clemson, who has played really well so far, they're like, I do think this is a series. Like, the one thing you can say about Clemson so far is their offense has not been very explosive. So if Georgia Tech's pitching can just keep the team close, like, I think that's a series Georgia Tech can win. If Tech takes 2 or 3, might need them top 10, boys. I mean, top 10 I think would be a stretch, but I think they definitely jump into like the top 15 range. But I mean, as it stands right now, Clemson is the best team on Georgia Tech's schedule. So if they win this, they've won 4 straight series to start ACC play, and they've beat what the rankings would say is the best team that is on their schedule right now. Now they still play Stanford, right? They play Virginia, teams that Stanford's playing really well. They play Louisville. But Clemson right now is the best team on their schedule. Can Tech do it? We both know who invests the most in the ACC. No, top 10. All right, Dust. All right. I think if Georgia Tech beats Clemson, they're definitely on some polls in the top 10. I don't think D1 Baseball will have them in the top 10. Canes, yes. Kyle will be locked in on that series. Anyone beating Clemson is a big accomplishment, in my opinion, just because of their NIL and next season 34 scholarships. Yeah, and I mean, let's just look up Clemson, what they've done as a team. So let's pull this up. All right, so let's look at them offensively. So you'll see what I mean here right away. 290 batting average, which again, if you look at Georgia Tech, they're batting like 330 to 340 as a team. So pretty significant margin there. Clemson has scored 210 runs in 26 games, so they're scoring about a little bit more than 8 runs per game, or right at 8 runs per game, which is solid. They have 43 doubles, 5 triples, 25 home runs. So Georgia Tech is leading them significantly in doubles, fairly significantly in home runs. They have about 10 more home runs. And so like Georgia Tech is the better hitting, more explosive, extra base hit type team. Now, Clemson is getting on base at a really high rate, 430 on base percentage. They're doing a little bit on the base paths, about 1 stolen base per game, but not nearly as much as Georgia Tech. And again, I think this offense Clemson's offense is solid. It just hasn't been very explosive. If they sweep Clemson, they are hopefully 24-4 and 10-2 in conference. That is top 10. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You will lose to us, Dusty. Miami's going to be Georgia Tech. Okay, Wake doesn't have a Rhett Lauder or Chase Burns in that rotation. Only so many coaching mistakes you can make before you figure it out. Yeah, but I mean, Wake. Like, I think you guys are like what you don't understand, Zach, is that like there's going to be at the end of the season, you will look at 1 or 2 of their pitchers as maybe not a Chase Burns, but you'll look at a couple of their arms and be like, those guys are maybe not Rhett Lauder or Chase Burns, but they're still really good. And that's what happens on every team is like people step up and turn into the dudes that you can depend on, especially on the good teams. And Wake's got a bunch of guys throwing really well. So I'm going to we'll look at the pitching now. So the strength of this team is the starting pitching, especially Friday, Saturday. You look at Aiden Canuck. He started out a little bit. He was pitching well, but still giving up a lot of runs. It was kind of weird. But his numbers have started to even out. 31 innings, only 11 walks, 19 hits. So he's given up less than one base runner per innings pitched, 54 strikeouts. So Friday night, like this is the thing for Georgia Tech. Like if they can win on Friday, they're in really good shape. But if they lose Friday, Clemson has a pretty big starting pitching advantage. If you look at their numbers are slightly better than Georgia Tech's as a staff. 226 innings, 174 hits given up, 98 walks, 275 strikeouts. It's a really solid pitching team. Kyle, what's your report and thoughts on Canuck? I think he's a legit future first-round pick. I think his velo, he's typically around like the low to mid 90s. Really good changeup, good breaking ball. throws strikes, right? He's like a true Friday night ace. Um, and like the numbers show that, he's striking out almost two guys per inning. He's walking less than one or about one every 3 innings. His whip's below one. Like he's just a true ACC ace. He's thrown on average he's averaging about 5 1/3 innings per start right now, which again is like you look at that guys that when I played in college, that you would think, man, that's pretty low, but it's kind of what you're seeing across the board in college baseball now is guys just don't go super deep. But yeah, he's definitely a potential. He's definitely a potential first rounder. I think next year's his draft. I don't know if he's sophomore eligible, but he's got 3 pitches for strikes. They're all average or better pitches at the major league level. Probably average fastball, average breaking ball, and then above average changeup. I haven't watched him too much this year, but I remember watching him last year as a freshman and I was very impressed with him. Very impressed as a freshman. And again, it's that when the changeup's your best pitch and your other pitches are really good too, like you're going to dominate college baseball. And so far he's done that. If you take away a couple of the early starts, I mean, he's been dominant these last 3 or 4 starts, just been dominant. So he's pitching really well. And I think that's the key for the series is that if you can win one on Friday against Aiden Canuck, you feel pretty good about winning the series because Darden's been great too. But if you look at the numbers, he's getting hit more. He's not missing as many bats. He's striking out less than one per innings pitch. So you feel like any pitcher you face from the Georgia Tech offense, if they're giving up contact, Georgia Tech's going to score runs. What Aiden Canuck does really well is he misses a lot of bats. He misses a ton of bats. So if he can just strike out a lot of guys for Tech, it's going to be tough to manufacture runs. And that WH making a natty is so hard now. You need a lot to go right. But yeah, I mean, Dusty, I think you'll agree. You'll watch him, maybe watch him get lit up on Friday. But I mean, if you watch him Friday, I think you'll agree. Riley Stanford coming out party on Sunday. I predict 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 run over 90 pitches. I'll take the under on that, Dust. Canucks changeup is one of the best I've seen in college baseball in a while. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, it's got a lot of depth, a lot of run on it. It's just like that's the thing is like he's when you're a right-handed pitcher and you got a really good breaking ball, but you're almost better against lefties. You're going to dominate most lineups. I've seen him throw it 5 times in a row to hitters and they still can't time it. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. I've seen him throw good stuff, and he's going to have huge track record by the time he's drafted. Hate the delivery, but he's good. Yeah, and like if you're a kid in your draft year that's pretty much dominated every year and in the ACC and you've been pitching on the weekend your whole career, like you're a first round pick. That's just kind of how it works. Now, he ultimately may not be viewed as like a true frontline ace. Obviously, if you're a top 5 pick college pitcher, you're viewed as like a potential frontline ace for a big league team. I don't think he's there. So I think he's like a mid to back end first round pick, just depending on, if his fastball velocity jumps at a certain point, he kind of sits in the mid 90s and can touch a little bit higher, then he's a potential top 10 pick. His comp is the dude from Fullerton, our age, Eshelman. No, he's got better stuff than Eshelman, though. I think he's got better stuff, and he throws harder than Eshelman. Eshelman was like high 80s. But again, with the gun now, who knows? About the same, maybe. Where do you rank Paul Skeens among all-time college pitchers? I mean, he's certainly at the top. He's in the he's like definitely in the conversation for maybe for greatest college pitcher of all time. And maybe not like, obviously he just had the year at LSU. He was really good at Air Force before that. But you talk about the season he had at LSU, like he's in the conversation. I mean, he's up there with like Strasburg and guys like that who just like absolutely dominated college baseball. And to be honest, like with Skeens, I mean, it was about as surefire a first overall pick there could be. Like Dusty's saying, I mean, when you're throwing at 102 with the amount of run he gets on his fastball, he can cut it. He commands all of his pitches. He's got a slider, a curveball, cutter, changeup, like completely overpowering stuff. And like Dusty said, like he has legit MLB ace stuff. And most guys, again, it's just like, and that's how Steven Strasburg was. And Strasburg had a really good major league career. Like there's not many like he's like usually those true MLB aces that can just come out right away and be an ace. Like it's a once in a decade type arm. So I mean that's how Paul Skeens was. I mean he was just like an MLB ace pitching in college. He was just that good. Excited for Vandy, Arkansas this weekend. Yeah, that'll be a great matchup. He's up there with Alex Fernandez 1 year at Miami. Don't sleep on Mark Pryor back in the day, boys. Yep, USC. See, Skeens also added a sinker at 99 this year. He now has 6 pitches at that velo. Not fair. Yeah, it's just like video. I mean, it's like he's got video game stuff. Like everything is like every pitch is like plus or better. And he throws over 100 and he's got like 65, 70 command. He's like, he's got as good a command as anyone in Major League Baseball, and he's got just plus or better stuff across the board. When it comes to arms, it should be by decades or half decades. I just hope the Pirates don't waste him. Yeah, I think that's what every Pirate fan thinks. Like, they have a good young core. Is their ownership going to invest in trying to sign some guys and maybe after this year, depending on how they perform? But like certainly, like Skeens is going to be very hard to lock down long term if he doesn't feel like he's going to get the support he wants. Because like he knows he can go be the frontline starter for any team in the big leagues right now in 4 or 5 more years. I think I don't know if he's super 2, but 4 or 5 more years. Hopefully Skeens lasts injury-wise as his mechanics are sound. Strasburg had major mechanical flaws that led to his many injuries. Yeah. But again, Buck, it's like even guys that have quote-unquote clean mechanics are, when you throw over 100, I mean, you just never know. You're just rolling it. You're just flipping a coin every time. Skeens will be on the Mets in a few years. Don't worry. Who would you say is the best coach currently in the SEC? I'm going Tony V. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue anyone else over Tony V right now with just what he's done in, the less than a decade he's been at Tennessee now. Did you see Cam Smith is going to make the Astros opening day roster? Yeah, I saw that. It's crazy just how different the major leagues is now with how fast these hitters are getting up to the big leagues. Like, even if you were a first round bat in years past, you still had to kind of go. I mean, you were going to get promoted quickly if you dominated, but guys are just getting to the big leagues instantly now. What was he was drafted last year. I mean, he's got a half season of pro ball, not even under his belt. And I think he did decently in his half season, but like, to me, I hope they're not rushing him. And obviously they've seen what they needed to see in camp, but still it's a whole different animal. Like having your first full season in pro ball be in the big leagues. Brad Rakowski, Miami 2012. Yeah, he was good. Brad Feger. Jordan Montgomery to undergo Tommy John surgery. Man, pitchers are dropping like flies in the big leagues. Saw the Rob Vaughn video. Manny, could you send it to me on X so we can watch it, the whole thing? No need to argue that call. He got some heat from the announcers saying even his team knew he was in the wrong. Well, I'd love to see the clip if you can send it to me on X or tag. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Tag me in the video so I can pull it up. Yeah, what WTF is that about? A head coach can't get tossed anymore. Half the time that is done to light a fire under their team's ass. Yep. And Dusty, I did see that tweet may have been fake in how much he was. I mean, I don't know what his suspension is, but I don't think it's 4 games, and I don't think he's getting a $25,000 fine and having to write apology letters. But yeah, it's. I hate that too. I hate it that like you get suspended or you get ejected, you get suspended for another game. Um, because you're exactly right. Like coaches, a lot of times would do that because they felt like the team seeing their coach have their back and arguing and getting tossed would energize the team. I mean, DH used to do that all the time, and we all knew like that was kind of what he was doing. Um, so I hate it too. I hate that coaches are getting, you if it's some really flagrant thing, I guess you understand a suspension, but like if they're just out there arguing and they get tossed, like the fact that guys get suspended for that stuff is just annoying. Agree, but if you look at the drop third, it clearly hit the dirt. Not a time to fire your team up when it's so obvious. I'll look for the video again. Yeah, Manny, see if you can find it. Because I don't know the context of it, so I have no idea. I was at the Gainesville Regional in 2021. The umps made a terrible call, and they let Sully chew them out for a good 5 minutes and didn't eject him. They knew they were wrong. Yeah, and a lot of times, like, there's certain things you can't say to an umpire. There's certain things that will get you tossed immediately. And it's like, if you say, you're terrible, they're going to toss you. If you say, that's terrible, they're not going to toss you. So if you can argue with umpires for a lot, now don't get me wrong, 5 minutes is, like you said, Zach, they probably know they messed up or something like that. But there are ways to argue with an umpire and still not get ejected. And coaches know that. Coaches know, like, if I want to get ejected, all I got to do is say this. Any tips I can give my cousin trying to start on varsity? He is a rising ninth grader. Just be the hardest worker on the team, right? The hardest workers on the team always find their way. As a freshman on varsity, it's tough depending on how big the school is. But just show you're the hardest worker on the team. That's all you can do. And then you got to perform, obviously. But like, as a coach, you always are looking for ways to get the guy who's a really hard worker who's not starting yet into the game. Good afternoon, all. Listening but teaching logic at the moment. Oof. I don't know how you can do both those things. I have a 2:30 and 3. Oh, 2:30 to 3. Got to jump. We'll see if you're still here. I probably won't be still here. See you, Dust. who's the National Player of the Year at the moment? I know there's still a lot of ball left. I mean, you have to go with, like Justin LeBron is up there right now. Maybe Merrick Houston, um, Zaborowski at Georgia. I'll check. I'll check, Manny. I have not seen it yet, Manny. Make sure you tag the right guy. But if the season ended today, who should win the Golden Spikes? I'd have to. I mean, I have to look more into all like the players that are really dominating across the game, and like obviously there's going to be pitchers in that conversation. There's going to be position players in that conversation. Um, but I mean, if you look at I think it's Zaborowski at Georgia with what he's doing right now. Like if I pull up the stats, I mean these numbers are ridiculous. He's hitting 467. He's got 14 home runs and 7 doubles. He's got 48 RBIs in 22 games started. He has 17 walks to 11 strikeouts. Like he's just dominating. He's OPSing 1700. So I mean that's and then look at his teammate Robbie Burnett's hitting 383 with 13, 26 walks, 17 hit by pitches to 15 strikeouts. He's OPSing almost 1600. So Georgia's got a few guys in their lineup that could be in consideration. Um, and then the question becomes like, all right, how much sway does like playing a premium defensive position give you? Because like if you look at Justin LeBron, he's having an amazing year. He's hitting 343 with 12 home runs, 7 doubles, 1 triple, 16 walks to 22 strikeouts. He's OPSing like 1250. Um, so his numbers are not even really close to what Zaborowski's doing for Georgia, but he's playing shortstop, so that means something. He's got 50 RBIs in 25 games, so he's driving in a bunch of runs. He's got in 99 at bats, he's got 50 RBIs. He's getting an RBI every 2 at bats, which is insane. So, I mean, I think right now, if you're looking, I mean, we're 20 games in, so it's impossible because some of these guys are going to just like, there's going to be guys that have a great first half of the year, which is we're basically at the halfway point almost, and then really fall off in the second half. So it's tough to say, but I think if you're looking at a hitter, it's Zaborowski from Georgia right now. He's dominating. So right now in home runs, I mean, Georgia's got the top 2 guys, Zaborowski and Burnett. There are 21 hitters in the country that have 10 plus home runs already. And then there are 50 plus that are at 9. So if we look at the teams that have hit the most home runs so far, Georgia's at 70, Tennessee's at 59, Arkansas 56, ETSU 54, Wake Forest 50. I'll pull this up so you guys can see it. So we're going to have a lot of teams that are going to cross the 100 home run mark this year. Doubles leading the way is Georgia Tech. And then Richmond's at second with 70, and then a pretty distant third is LSU at 65. If we let's look at walks. Who's leading the league in walks? Well, you got VMI at the top. Georgia State, that's huge, right? 181 walks in 25 games. So you're getting 7 walks a game minimum. Should Maryland win all 5 games? I got to look at who they're playing. Strikeout to walk ratio. So here's a good indicator of how your pitching staff, how dominant your pitching staff is. Strikeouts to walk. Tennessee far above at 4 strikeouts per walk. Then you got Arkansas, Mississippi State, Vandy, Florida, Arizona. Florida State's 10th. Miami 25th. Georgia Tech 32nd. George Mason 3 games against Northwestern and UMBC. Yeah, I think realistically, they definitely have the chance to win all 5. White House, But again, sweeping anybody on the weekend is really tough. It doesn't happen a lot, so it's tough to say, oh yeah, they should sweep. But like you think definitely they should win 4 out of 5. Let's see who's leading the country in strikeouts. Florida Atlantic, Trey Beard has 62 strikeouts, tied with Liam Doyle at Tennessee. Hey, Kyle. Yesterday, I got a letter in the mail from the University of Alabama baseball inviting me to a camp. Is that likely a mass invitation like email? Yes, likely it is. Again, because I'll just for recruiting purposes, is there a chance they've identified you as a guy they want to follow? Yes, but they send out those letters to a bunch of players that will never be good enough or play at Alabama, right? And every team does that. Um, but with recruiting, it's all about, and again, if you're a 27, it's different. Um, but if you're a 26 or older, they're going to be reaching out, trying to get in contact with you if they're really interested, to try to start the process up and kind of figure out where you're at and everything like that. So it's not like I don't want to put a damper on it, but that is likely what it is. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me today. I'll see you guys tomorrow on stream, or maybe tonight after some of the games, around 10:30, if I'm able to do it.